With absolutely no hesitation or shame whatsoever, with no reservations at all about what they were saying, Fox News host Maria Bartiromo and former Trump economic advisor Larry Kudlow suggested that Joe Biden might have such serious dementia that he may not even know where he is. He may not even know what he's signing, and that he may not even really be the president, that it actually might be Susan Rice, who is a sort of shadow president because Joe Biden is so unaware of his surroundings, almost like a Weekend at Bernie's type situation that they're suggesting. Now, I could say a lot of things in advance of watching the clip. Let's first look at the clip to orient ourselves, and then we'll talk about it.
Because it turns out President Biden may be really, given his first couple weeks, the most left-wing president we've ever seen. National Review editor Rich Lowry wrote a great column on this. His actions on spending and taxing and regulating on immigration and fossil fuels and other cultural issues, he may be the most left-wing. I don't know whether he believes this stuff. I don't know whether he's an empty vessel for the far left wing of his party, but they are moving in the wrong direction from day one.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask you. Who the heck is coming up with these ideas? You know, some people feel like Susan Rice is running things. Does President Biden understand what he's signing into law here with these executive orders?
Well, that's a good question. Look, I'm not going to get into, is he alert or not alert? He is who he is. I knew Joe Biden very well a long time ago, but now for the last 8 or 10 years.
Joe Biden might be an empty vessel, they say, who's coming up with the things that Biden is doing. Well, maybe it's Susan Rice, who's a shadow president running the show. Biden might not even understand the things he's signing. Is Joe Biden even alert? And that, when you talk about alert, it's a reference to this medical term that's used, X3, when you observe a patient. They're oriented in 3 ways: to person, place, and time. It's like the most basic medical observation you can make about someone as to whether they have even the cognitive capacity to know where they are and when it is. Talking about, is Joe Biden even alert? So let's go through this in pieces. When Donald Trump was president, there were such serious questions about his cognitive state, the slurring, the not realizing people he's talking about are actually right in front of him, getting off Air Force One and wandering off and having to be brought back by a Secret Service agent, this sort of glitching and verbal interruptions to his speech that were very strange. Talking about the oranges of an investigation, the citrus fruit, of course, appearing to have no memory whatsoever of things that happened shortly before, arguing with people combatively about his cognitive state in bizarre ways. And numerous neurological and mental health experts sounded the alarm about Donald Trump. And we talked to some of them about it. And I would also ask those experts when I would interview them, I would say, what do you see with Joe Biden? Because there are people on the right talking about Joe Biden dementia, cognitive decline. And all of these experts said essentially versions of the same thing, which was Joe Biden seems to have the type of slowdown that you see in more than 50% of people when they approach 80 years old. This is combining with Joe Biden's lifelong stutter to make him talk in a particular way. But not my opinion, these experts, mental health and neurological experts, said they did not see the same things in Biden that they saw with Trump. That was their opinion. Okay. Having not personally examined Trump nor Joe Biden, that was the opinion they came away with. Now, I've been clear. We shouldn't lie to ourselves and others and say Joe Biden in 2021 is just like he was in 2012 when he ran circles around Paul Ryan in the vice presidential debates. If we were to say that, it's obviously untrue and we lose credibility. 70-year-old Joe Biden in 2012 humiliated vice presidential candidate Paul Ryan when Romney was running against Barack Obama. Joe Biden had a rapidity and a slickness and a facility when debating that he did not have in 2020 when debating Donald Trump. There's no question about it. This is common in people when they get past the age of 75. Now, I'm not trying to be offensive. We have lots of folks in our audience in their 70s, in their 80s, even in their 90s. I'm thinking of our friend Sam in Cambridge, vibrant, energized in his 90s and a big supporter of the show. But if you think about this on a bell curve, at age 78, lots of people are not as energetic as they were earlier in life. This is the reality of humanity. So having without question conceded that, does Joe Biden know what he's signing? Is Susan Rice actually the president behind the scenes? This is ridiculous to be proposing on a national cable news channel for Maria Bartiromo and Larry Kudlow to be doing. It's outrageous and absurd. And of course, you simply have to see Joe Biden answer questions from the press, as he's done half a dozen times in the 2 weeks he's been president, to understand he knows what he's signing. He knows what he wants to do about this or that. He can talk in detail about pandemic response and who's on his staff and so on and so forth. You only need to watch 5 minutes of that to know that he understands the things that are going on, at least politically, because that's what he's talking about. So they lost the election. They tried to then steal it, and that failed. And now they're resorting to this. And by the way, most Americans like the things that Biden has done so far. You know, Kudlow saying this is the furthest left president ever. Well, maybe on paper that's actually true, but he hasn't really done that much yet. He's reversed some of the things Trump did and gotten us back to where we were with Obama. But these extreme leftist tendencies of Biden that are being claimed, so far he's not actually acted on any of them if they exist. And for the most part, the country is relatively pleased with Joe Biden. 63% approval in general of Joe Biden, much higher than Trump ever got at any point during his presidency. 69% approval for Joe Biden's coronavirus response so far. 80% support for Joe Biden's federal mask mandate, and on and on and on. So not only does Joe Biden know what he's doing, most of the country likes what Joe Biden is doing so far. So just absolutely wacky, irresponsible stuff there on Fox News. One of our sponsors is Hydrant, which is a delicious fruit drink powder that you mix into water for rehydration. And they're giving you 25% off your first order. It's made with 4 key electrolytes that the body needs, powerfully supporting your hydration. Hydrant tastes great. It's made with real fruit juice. It's been a great part of my daily routine for a while now. Keeping myself hydrated puts me in a better mood. The body needs hydration for basic energy and focus, and Hydrant is the perfect way to rehydrate, especially because it's cost effective and lower in sugar compared to all of those popular sports drinks that are out there. You really have to try it for yourself to see what I mean. It tastes great. They also have a variety called Hydrant Immunity, packed with vitamins A, B, C, and D, which is also very much worth trying. Hydrant has a full refund guarantee if you're not satisfied, and you'll get 25% off your first order when you go to drinkhydrant.com/Pakman, or just enter the code Pakman at checkout. I've put the link right underneath this video.